Let it break! For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to this LouieTeeNetwork exclusive limited series, The Reign of Terror, chronicling the 23 years of pure hell Daniel Snyder has put this fan base through. He's gone. We're on chapter 19, which takes us to 2017. And it felt like a season of farewell, like an end of an era. For some of you, for many of you, you were happy to see Kirk go. I wasn't one of those fans. I believed that we had a franchise quarterback. Did he have faults? Yes. Show me a franchise quarterback that doesn't. Some less than others. But at the end of the day, you can win with Kirk Cousins. And unfortunately, there's a narrative surrounding Kirk that I don't think is wholeheartedly true. I think there are aspects of it that are true, but there are certain things you just can't argue when it comes to Kirk Cousins. And I think a lot of times Washington fans got lost and caught up in the failed comeback attempts and in some of the, big moments and spots that he came up short in, and failed to realize there were a lot more of the situations where he did come up big, where he was clutch, where he was able to suit up, something that we can't say and haven't been able to say since he's departed, where a quarterback has started all 16 games. That was never an issue for Kirk Cousins. He did not miss games. He's a tough SOB. That said, I felt like it was over after 2016. I knew he wasn't coming back. The contract situation had gotten out of hand. There was too much that had been said and that had been done over the years that was irreparable. He was done. And even though he played the song and dance of, hey, I don't know, we'll see what happens, mentally, he had already checked out of Washington, and he was just waiting for Washington to not be able to slap the franchise tag on him so that he could move on and be paid elsewhere, which would happen after this 2017 season. But he had to get through the season first. So my expectation level was low. There were a ton of changes within the organization. Daniel Snyder was up to his usual tricks. He was up to no good. They started a smear campaign on Scott McCloughan the year before. It spilled into 2017. They were suing him. It was this, it was that. They ultimately relieved him of his duties in the lead up to 2017 in the offseason. Let's see, Jay Gruden. Look, we all had crowned Joe Barry public enemy number one in terms of the coaching staff. So Jay got rid of him, went and embarrassed Wade Phillips, who we felt like would have been one of the better options available at the time. Brought him in, showed him a bunch of clips of Jay, having success against them, and then didn't give him the job. Instead, promoted from within and gave the job to Greg Minuski, and we know how that turned out for us. So, more tomfoolery within the organization. And, it's just crazy how you lose Sean McVay. A lot of fans wanted Jay gone. I couldn't co-sign that after 2 straight winning seasons. Should have been in the playoffs. I didn't put a lot of the blame on Jay for 2016. You get a field goal kicker that can kick and we're in the playoffs. It's really simple. Like, even with the Matt Jones, fumbles and all of the things that transpired, the lack of defense at times, you get a field goal kicker that's more consistent than Dustin Hopkins, and Jay Gruden is in the playoffs 2 consecutive years in 15 and 16. So I wasn't looking to get off of the Jay Gruden train. And a lot of people, in hindsight now, we should have kept Sean McVay and let Jay Gruden go. In the moment, some of you did feel that way, but not everybody felt that way. It's easy to say that now. But I can't sit here and act as if I can't recollect how I felt in the moment. And I was like, no, I'm not. I don't want to get rid of Jay. So Sean McVay is off to L.A. So Matt Cavanaugh is the new offensive coordinator, but we all know who was calling the plays at that point. It was Jay Gruden. So, a lot of changes that year. But I told you, it already felt over. We knew that 16 was probably the last year of Sean McVay. He was really becoming a star. We weren't sure if he was going to get a job that quick. Chris Cooley had already told us, dude, if he gets in the room with somebody, he's getting a job, and he did. And once Sean was gone, Kirk was gone. So This felt like the farewell tour for all intents and purposes, and I wasn't expecting much heading into 17. The expectations were high for 16. Um, they failed to deliver, unfortunately. So I was just going into 17 like, all right, let's just see where this thing goes. My hope was, and if you go back and watch the videos from 17, the hope was that we played extremely well. We killed it in 17 and won a playoff game or two, and somehow Kirk just felt like unfinished business. I need to be back here with my guys to finish what we started. That was a long shot. So into the offseason we go, and as I talked about, a lot of changes. No Pierre Garçon, no Deshaun Jackson. In comes Terrell Pryor. Yeah, old number 11. No shirt, one hand catches in camp. Really sucked the fan base in. I was never really one of those that, was fully on board, but I will say that I had high hopes for him. I thought he could come in here and play well. I didn't think he was going to be this ridiculous number one receiver that was going to change the game or anything of that sort. But I thought he could come in and be solid. No. But a lot of people got sucked in. And it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch a lot of these people posting and reposting and talking about what a beast this guy's going to be. Oh my God, he's a freak and this, that, and the third. And I was like, you do know Terrell Pryor's been in the league for a while now, right? Now, I get it. He started his career as a quarterback. And he was really just getting started in terms of his journey as a wide receiver. But I'm like, you do understand that, like, it's Terrell Pryor we're talking about here. Anyway, the draft, let's see how many of these I can get. Jonathan Allen, Ryan Anderson, who else was in that draft? Fabian Moreau. Monte Nicholson. Oh man. I feel like I should be able to get more people out of that 2017 draft. I think that's all I can remember, though. Samaje Perine. So what did I have? Jonathan Allen. Ryan Anderson. Fabian Moreau. Samaje Perine. I think that was a pretty long list of dudes they drafted that year. Monte Nicholson, I said that. 5. Let's see if I can. Maybe I go through the positions. I'll think it'll jog my memory. I don't think they drafted a receiver that year. I don't think. Don't know if I don't think they drafted any defensive linemen either. I can't think of any, and I know that was. I think they drafted some offensive linemen that year, though. I think they drafted some offensive linemen. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, because I feel like there are like at least 3 or 4 more dudes that were on this roster for a little while before flaming out, but that's all I can remember from that draft. So this season to me was about Kirk, farewell, um, the failed experiment with Terrell Pryor, and a ton of turnovers and injuries. This is probably the most injury riddled season, and we've dealt with injuries quite a bit throughout this tumultuous tenure of Daniel Snyder. Um, I think there was no season where we were hit with injuries harder than 2017, and we could ill afford them. We weren't a very talented team to begin with. As you could see, the talent starting to whittle away. We weren't in a position to really have injuries, and there weren't very many guys. By the time the season ended, there weren't very many recognizable names nor faces on this football team. Like, we were finishing up the season with guys like Brian Quick and Capri Bibbs at running back. You know, it was a joke, man. You know, our offensive line was in shambles, which leads me to one of my favorite games. We'll get to one of my favorite Kirk games of all time. You know, um, 2017 was a mess in terms of injury, just an absolute disaster. One injury in particular signified the end of the season too. We'll get to that as well. So let's jump into the season, man. You start week one. Really, really disappointing. Really, really disappointing loss to the Eagles. Remember, this is now second year Carson Wentz. He's just coming into his own, and he would put on a show in 17. And before he gets injured, he looks like he's going to be in the running for league MVP. Probably going to win it, honestly speaking. And so he had a play early in that game where, and this was the shit he did to us when he was in Philadelphia, where we look like we're going to sack him. Two guys get a hand on him. He somehow escapes, throws a bomb to Nelson Aguilar, who, you know, breaks a tackle and scores a touchdown. And you're just like, what the F, man? But even with that said, we were down 13-0 in that game. We took the lead 14-13, and we had all the momentum, and Jamison Crowder muffed a punt. And at the time, we did not know this because he was so good in 2015 with Jamison Crowder. Or, excuse me, 2016. What we didn't know was that was a sign of things to come. It was going to be a horrendous year for Jamison Crowder as a punt returner. Fumbles galore. And turnovers were really, after injuries, the next biggest reason why the team wasn't successful in 2017 was turnovers. You know, the thing that I loved about when Kirk was here and Jay was the head coach is that if we didn't turn the ball over, we were hard to stop. Period. The one thing that would stop us on a weekly basis was turnovers. If we didn't turn it over, good luck stopping us from scoring 27 points. Because we were probably going to hit 27 if we didn't turn the football over. And if your defense was horrendous, we were going to hit 30. And if it was really bad, we probably were going to put a 40 spot on you. But that's how we operated in those Jay and Kirk days. And we haven't seen that since. We haven't even been remotely close to that since. And that even after Pierre and Deshaun left in 16, that was still true in 2017. With lesser talent, when he was essentially throwing the football to Josh Doctson, Vernon Davis, Jamison Crowder, and Chris Thompson. Like, those are his receivers. Jordan Reed was always hurt. So at this point, he literally was throwing to Vernon Davis, who was like 97 years old, a running back, and Chris Thompson, who led the team in rushing and receiving until he got injured in 2017. And Jamison Crowder is a slot guy, and Josh Doctson still trying to establish himself as a receiver in the league in his second year. Kirk didn't have many options and weapons, but what he did have, he utilized the hell out of it. And Jay did a great job of scheming guys open. So it just turnovers galore in that first game, including a fumble. It's 23-17 late. We got the football. I'm thinking Kirk's going to do what he's done to these Eagles so many times before and stick a stake right through their heart. And they call a fumble on a play that I thought was not a fumble. I thought it was a forward pass. I thought we got jerked on that play. And Fletcher Cox scoops it up, scores a touchdown, and that pretty much salted the game away 30-17. But I still to this day think that was a forward pass. But whatever. So you lose week 1. At the time, we did not know how good the Rams were going to ultimately be. They would make the playoffs in that first year under Sean McVay. Win the division, actually. Host a playoff game. And lose to the Atlanta Falcons, if I'm not mistaken. But we beat them in week 2. We went to L.A., our old buddy Sean McVay, and we beat the Rams rather. And that was a big game, I want to say, for Rob Kelly. But in particular, I remember Mason Foster with a huge interception late to close the deal. And so many people had so much shit to say about Mason Foster. So it was nice to see him make a play. A big interception late to seal it. And we go there and we win, get off to Snyder. We're 1-1. You come home, huge, and it was, this is rare for us. Back-to-back weeks of being on primetime television. Big spot against the Raiders on a Sunday night. Raiders are coming in 2-0 on the season, riding high. They'd blown out their first 2 opponents. So for them, we're probably looking like food. And, it was one of the most dominant performances I've seen from this team, probably in the Jay Gruden era. And we had some beatdowns where we just destroyed some teams, especially in that 15 season when we got it going. New Orleans, Buffalo, was a no contest for much of that ball game. There were some games where we really got after some teams. We could have had a shutout. If Jamison Crowder doesn't muff a punt that leads to Raiders points, it's 27-0 at that time in the game. I don't think they're going to score that night. Both of their touchdowns, or both of their scoring opportunities came off of turnovers deep in our own territory. Jamison Crowder with the muff punt, and Samaje Perine had a fumble. So without the aid of those 2 turnovers, they don't score 10 points. I think they get shut out that night. Derek Carr was shell-shocked. We beat him up. He was throwing picks left and right. They had nothing offensively going for them. Nothing. And we were dominating them. But it was as sound a thrashing as you can find in the Jay Gruden era in terms of all around offense, defense, special teams, except for the turnovers, which were the story that season, if you ask me, outside of the injuries. So we beat them up pretty good, like 27-10. And you're 2-1 now. And the Chiefs, if you remember that year, so we've lost to the Super Bowl, the eventual Super Bowl champions. We beat a playoff team in the Rams who won their division. We beat the Raiders. And now we're going up against the team that would eventually make the playoffs and win the AFC West and start the season off like 6 or 7-0 under Alex Smith. When we met them, they were 3-0 on a Monday night. We were 2-1. It was a big game at the time. You may not recall this. I can't recall being as amped for a Monday night game that early in the season in a while because, normally when we would play on Monday night, it would be week 1. You don't really know how good you're going to be. The last time we had done it was the year before against Pittsburgh, and we got our asses kicked. So to already be 2-1, to already have a little bit of momentum, you're on the road at Arrowhead, big spot. This felt good after the performance we put on national television the week before. And then we come out in Kansas City and we jump these boys. And it should have been 14-0, but it was 10-0. And we're dominating this game. They got nothing going offensively. We've slowed down Kareem Hunt, this, exhilarating rookie. Keep in mind, week 1 of that season, the Patriots won the Super Bowl the year prior. And they had the Thursday night showcase where you drop the banner. And the Chiefs went in there, put a 40 spot on their head, and beat them. So these Chiefs weren't, anything to play around with. And we had them stifled. But if you recall, that was the night where all of the injuries started to hit. We lost like 4 starters in the first half of that game. Jonathan Allen got hurt. Josh Norman got hurt. I felt like we lost like one more dude, and then we ended up losing somebody I felt like later on in the game. Like, we had a bunch of players go down in that first half of that game, and we were dominating them at the time of a lot of these injuries. And then, the floodgates just open in terms of, allowing the Chiefs to have a little bit of success and some momentum. Right before the half, too, it all kind of happened so fast. But it still ended up being 10-7, I think, at half. And it was 17-17 late. Or 2017, rather, late. Chiefs were up. We all remember the play. Kirk throws up a jump ball. And just to go back in time, the week before on that Sunday night against the Raiders, Josh Doctson catches a deep ball. Moss is on a defender, pushes him out of the way, jaunts into the end zone. And I remember thinking, hell yeah, here he comes. This is the shit that we were looking for last year. He had all those Achilles injuries and things of that nature in his rookie season, really didn't play all that much. And so this is what we were, being sold when he was selected as the first round pick. So the following week, Kirk throws one up to him on a third down late in the game. And he goes up and he gets it's a perfect ball. And, people wanted to chastise Kirk about making the wrong decision. Oh, you had Jordan Reed open on this play and that. And Kirk made the right decision and the right throw. To hell with all that shit everybody else talking about. Josh Doctson had the ball in his hands, needs to secure that as he hits the ground and win us the football game. And he didn't. He caught the ball, turned over, and as he hit the ground, he let the ground force that football out. Instead of him cradling it and falling in a position that would allow him to protect the football, he just fell on his elbow and the ball squirted out. We settled for the field goal. We tied the game up. And, of course, in typical Redskins fashion, we let Alex Smith engineer a field goal drive in less than 30 seconds. I think when Josh Doctson did all of that, it couldn't have been no more than 45 seconds left after we kicked the field goal. And they got into field goal range probably with like 6 or 7 seconds left. Because we ended up having the ball back. So it happened like that. It was a big completion down the sideline. I do remember that. Alex Smith rolled out to his right and found a receiver down the sideline, and that pretty much put him in the field goal range. Of course, they kick the field goal, they win the game. We do the little stupid lateral shit. It gets picked up and ran for a touchdown, but that one hurt. That one hurt like hell. You were this close to being 3-1, and who knows what the season turns into. Maybe the injuries still get us anyway. But who knows what the season turns into. If you win that game going into your bye week, you knock off 2 consecutive undefeated opponents going into your bye week. 3 if you want to count the Rams coming into that game. They were 1-0. Could you imagine? I mean, it's the same thing I said about 2016. Could you imagine if you don't blow the Lions game and you don't blow the Bengals game and you're 8-2 instead of 5-3-1 heading into that Sunday night game against Aaron Rodgers? Or you're 8-2 instead of 6-3-1 heading into that third Thanksgiving Thursday game against Dallas, who's 9-1 at the time? Can you imagine? Of course you can't. We're the Redskins. You can't imagine that. So no, what? Are you kidding me? Daniel Snyder's your owner. You can't be 3-1 with 2 wins against big time undefeated teams. No, you're 2-2, and you come off the bye, and you got the lowly San Francisco 49ers. They're 0-5, haven't won a game yet, and instead of crushing them like we're supposed to, we jump on them early, and then we turn it over. We self-destruct, and we leave the door open, and they almost ran right through that bitch, but we held on and we beat them. Kyle came back to Washington thinking he was going to do some work. So we had to, I don't even know if that was Kyle. I don't think that was Kyle. Kyle's first time back was when he brought Pierre with him, and I think it might have been Kyle, matter of fact. Now that I'm thinking about it, because when Pierre left here, he went to San Francisco. If I'm not mistaken, he went to San Francisco. The only reason he would have gone to San Francisco is because Kyle knew him from Washington. So I think that might have been Kyle Shanahan's first year in San Francisco. God, almost stole one from us. Anyway, so you're 3-2, and then you have another date with the Eagles on this time on a Monday night, and again, this is Carson Wentz, prime Carson Wentz on an MVP type run, and we just ran into a buzzsaw that night in terms of Wentz and his playmaking ability. Again, turnovers were key in the game. But the most frustrating thing, much like the first time we played them, Kirk threw a bad interception in the red zone. Took points off the board. We turned it over, but the biggest thing was Carson Wentz was just breaking our back with these plays. So there was a play where he throws a touchdown pass to one of the running backs out of the backfield. I remember him breaking a tackle. He's going down on the ground. I still don't even know how he got enough on this pass. He's going down, and he just flicks the thing into the corner of the end zone over a defender. It's not like this guy was wide open. He just had to get it there. Over a defender into the waiting arms of a leaping running back. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? But that wasn't the one that killed my spirits. The one that killed my spirits was the one where we looked like we had him bottled up for a sack. And he's like engulfed, and then somehow he comes out of that wreckage and runs for, and this is like 3rd and 9 at a crucial point. Like we finally had gained some momentum. We scratched and clawed our way back into the game. A stop here would be huge because we had just went down and scored. And he slithers through this thing somehow, runs for like 25 yards on a 3rd and 9 where he should have been sacked for like a 10 or 11 yard loss. And at that moment, I just threw my hands up. Like, what are we supposed to do, man? We can't tackle this dude. And, I mean, that was the night for us. Zach Ertz kicked our ass, and Eagles swept us, beat us for the second time. All hope was not lost, though. You're 3-3. You got a trip to, or you got Dallas coming to the crib. And just another one of those games where turnovers were the deciding factor in the game. Too many mistakes, man. I think we turned it over 4 times in that game, 3 or 4 times. Like, anytime we didn't score, as I mentioned, 27, points, it was because we turned it over. Like, you weren't stopping us on offense. Chris Thompson, so let me just, because I haven't done him justice. Chris Thompson was having, like, real shit. And I know this may sound, Chris Thompson was putting up MVP type numbers in 2017. It all started in week 2 against the Raiders, where he went apeshit that game. He was the MVP of that game, along with the defense. And it just continued. It snowballed from there. Every week we were getting him involved in the screen game. He was getting out in the pass route. Kirk was finding him. He was making guys miss. There was some excellent blocking down the field. Are you kidding me? Trent Williams and Brandon Sheriff and Sean Laval, they were mauling guys down the field. Mauling them. Spencer Long. Like, these were some well-constructed screens we were running. Like, we were actually a legitimate screen offense in those days, if you could believe it. I mean, because you look at our offense now, we can't run a screen to save our lives. But back in those days, we were one of the best in the league. So, Chris Thompson is having the season of a lifetime. And it continued in that Cowboys game. I don't know how teams failed to find him and didn't know where he was and wasn't accounting for him. But he continued to be a problem. Chris Thompson was fantastic and phenomenal that year. But unfortunately, just, again, too many mistakes. Kirk throws a pick 6. It wasn't his fault. He got hit as he was throwing the ball at the end of the game. But we made too many mistakes in that game, as we always do. And so now you're 3-4. You lose that game. So forget. I think we beat somebody. I can't remember because I don't think we fell to 3-5. I think we got back to 4-4 on the season. Um, we beat somebody. I can't quite remember who, but after that, the season was right there, right there. Like you were at a crossroads in the season. I want to say. Yeah, I can't remember. Oh, that's it. That's what it is. You get to that week 9 game. We're 3-4, and we're searching for bodies. At this point, we're running out of healthy bodies to put on the field. Offensive line wise, we're in shambles. You know, Trent Williams is injured. The only healthy offensive lineman that I think we started the season with is Morgan Moses, who's still playing. I could be wrong about that. I mean, it was a cast of characters, a who's who list of these guys on the offensive line, so much so we signed an offensive lineman that week and people didn't even know his name in the huddle. Like, I think we had signed that dude. The running joke was we signed him on Saturday and he started the game on Sunday against Seattle. And the Seahawks were good, right? They weren't a slouch of a football team. They were good in those days. So there was no chance we were going to beat Seattle, in Seattle no less. So we go over there and we're expecting to get our asses kicked. And you're mentally fatigued from all of the losses, the recent games rather, and them just not going in your favor. And somehow we go over there. I remember Kendall Fuller having a pick in that game, and the defense just hanging tough and giving us a shot. And Seattle obliged. They made mistakes. They gave us opportunities. They missed, plays that were there to be made. But late in the game, we're up 10-3. I want to say the score was. Might have been, somehow we were up like 10-6 or something like that. And I think Josh Norman gets cooked by Doug Baldwin. I mean, breaks him off the line of scrimmage. Gets free, catches the ball. I don't know if it ended up going for a touchdown or it ended up going, down inside the 5 and they ran it in or whatever. But they took the lead, like 13-10. And I remember Brian Quick. This is the shit we were dealing with. Like I told you, we were so banged up. Brian Quick is in the game. And he makes this crazy catch, gets mollywopped, but holds on to it, ends up getting a concussion. But it's a huge play in the game. It's a 3rd down that he converts. And then Kirk drops back and throws a dime to Josh Doxson, who extends, lays out, dives, catches it, is down. We thought he scored a touchdown initially, down at the 1. And I think Kirk either quarterback snuck it or we handed it to Fat Rob. Either way, we get in and we take the lead. And I remember feeling like this is the grittiest performance we've ever seen from A Jay Gruden coach team, but B, Kirk Cousins. There was no reason for us to be in that game. With what we went out there, what we boarded the plane with, there was no way we were supposed to come out of there victorious. And I remember feeling like this season ain't going to be shit because we got too many injuries. But if it does, that's the turning point of the season. That's the game right there that saw this team band together and find a way to get it done, which I knew was a crock of shit with what we had on the field. Okay? That was a great, moment in time, but you can't bottle that up and take it with you. Like, we're just too banged up. The next week against Minnesota, they were really good. Remember, that's the Case Keenum year. Remember, they played the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. Case Keenum, that's why Kirk went there, because they felt like if we get better quarterback play, which they, looked at Kirk as an upgrade, with what we did the year before, we should be in the Super Bowl. And they never played defense like that again. That was the crazy part. Kirk has never had the benefit of a really dominant defense or just even a really good defense in his career, if we're being honest. He's always dealt with some kind of deficiency around him. no run game, lack of defensive prowess, and he's got to make up for it on the offensive side. And if it doesn't work, he gets blamed for it. But again, I digress. So they come in and they take it to us, man. And again, we turn the shit over. We do the thing that we do. So the mistakes allowed the Vikings to build this, big lead. But we kept it interesting. We made it interesting, but we just didn't have enough juice, man. And they put it on us good. They put like almost 40 points up on us. And we lose that game. You drop to 4-5. But the following week was the backbreaker. That was like, finish him, dun-dun-dun. We go to New Orleans, Drew Brees, company. We dominate this game. And I feel like I've said that so many times. We dominate this game, and we're up 31-16. And I remember this game because I went to my parents' house. We watched the game, and I remember telling my dad we were trash. We had just lost to Minnesota, and I'm like, we got so many injuries, we're trash. And he's like, y'all are spanking New Orleans, though. I was like, I said, man, we ain't even gonna win this game. And we were up 15 with like 4 minutes to go. And I remember telling my dad, shit, we gonna beat New Orleans. This is crazy. We trash, for real. And Drew Brees took them down the field. They scored a touchdown. I said, hey, this shit ain't over. They might come back and beat our ass. I'm telling you, we trash. And I was telling my dad that. And my dad's the ultimate hype man. So he's like, no, y'all got the game in the bag. Y'all ain't got to worry about nothing. And sure enough, I think we blew it on a 4th down. Breeze got it back. Took them right down the field. Got the 2-point conversion. And tied it up. Sent it to overtime. And they beat us with a walk-off field goal. And Chris Thompson broke his ankle in that game. And he was really never the same as a player after that. Like, that was the height of Chris Thompson. That 2017 season, he was a man possessed. And he was, at the time of his injury, he was leading the team in both receiving and rushing. He was that dynamic for us that year. Unfortunately, he didn't get to finish what he started. And I felt like the Saints game, it emotionally drained us. It took all the fight that we had left out of us, and it took the best player that we had on the field currently producing for us as well, all in one fell swoop. So, yeah, the next week, Thanksgiving night, we're at home against the Giants. They suck, and we beat them. It wasn't a fun game to watch. As a matter of fact, it was a really, really bad game to watch. But we won. But, the following week after that, it's a Monday night game against Dallas, and Jamison Crowder single-handedly hands them the game in a 4-minute stretch. Fumbles on the opening possession, we're going for points. Fumbles a punt. And just like that, Dallas ran away with that game, and it was never. Crowder literally gave them the game in a 2-possession stretch in the span of 4 minutes. And at that point, and I hate when that happens, when you take, because Crowder was such a good receiver, but as fans, we let the punt returning issues interfere with the fact that he was a dynamic receiver. And so we were so over Crowder. A lot of people were so over Crowder because of the mistakes. I was just like, just take him off of punts. Just take him off of punts. He lost his confidence. Take him off of punts. The season fizzled out. We got our asses kicked by the Chargers, and that mathematically eliminated us from the playoffs. We won some meaningless games at the end of the season. But ultimately we were 7-9, and that's probably what we should have been, considering the circumstances, all the injuries, all the turnovers, and all the turmoil of the offseason. The Scott McLuhan saga, the defensive coordinator hiring process where they, called Wade Phillips in just to emasculate him, right? Sean McVay being plucked away from us. You know, and the whole Kirk saga was really, really draining because we knew he wasn't coming back. We knew he wasn't coming back, but he couldn't say it, but he knew he was done. He couldn't wait to get out of here. Once McVay left, that was the only thing keeping him in Washington. Sean left, Kirk had no interest in coming back. And so it was a really exhausting offseason, and the season reflected that, but it was a crazy start because I didn't see it coming. I didn't see 2-1 with an impressive showing on a Sunday night against the Raiders. And you were this close to being 3-1 and having maybe that season go in a different direction. Who knows? Who knows? But so many turnovers that year. So many injuries that year. You know who didn't miss any games? Number 8. Unfortunately, that would be his last season in Washington. And that is where I leave you on the reign of terror. As the organization, they did it again. Make a move. They think they've won. Don't tell anybody. You know, Bruce Allen is calling executives like Doug Williams and telling them, don't tell anybody. You know, turn off your phones. They don't even know what the hell's going on. They don't even know a trade's been executed. What such dumbasses. Get to that on the next episode of The Reign of Terror, chronicling the 23 years of pure hell Daniel Snyder has put this fan base through. Until next time, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. Have a good one.
Louie T.